There's something deeply unsettling about silence where sound should live, like a baby's cry that never comes. On a chilled March morning in 1981, that silence crept into the Foster family's home in rural Indiana. The sun hadn't yet risen when Loretta Foster made her way into the nursery, expecting to see three little faces peeking through the bars of their cribs. Her beloved triplets, Michael, Mason, and Megan. Instead, the room met her with an eerie stillness. The blankets were neatly folded. The pacifiers were in place. No sign of struggle. No broken glass. No footprints. Just absence. In one horrifying moment, Loretta's entire world emptied. She screamed so loud the neighbors down the road claimed they heard it echo through the woods. Her husband David, downstairs preparing morning bottles, dropped them on the floor and ran. What they found was not a robbery, not a break-in. It was something worse, something that would never make sense. All three infants, barely 14 months old, were gone. No signs of forced entry, no ransom note, no cries in the night. 3 cribs, 3 missing children, and a mystery that would haunt the country for decades. In the hours following the triplets' disappearance, the Foster home transformed from a haven of innocence into the epicenter of one of Indiana's most baffling mysteries. Officers from the local precinct arrived within minutes of Loretta's frantic 911 call. The lead investigator, Sergeant Ron Delaney, later said it was the quietest crime scene he'd ever entered. It was like the children were vacuumed out of their lives, he told reporters. No sign of forced entry, no broken window, no door left ajar. The nursery window was locked from the inside. Snowfall from the night before left a fresh layer across the yard. Pristine, unmarked. Even the baby monitor, plugged into the wall just outside the room, hadn't picked up a single unusual sound. Within 24 hours, the FBI was called in. Helicopters circled the wooded property. Search parties with dogs combed nearby fields, sheds, and even septic tanks. Every neighbor within a 5-mile radius was questioned. Every vehicle stopped and recorded. It was as if the entire county froze in place to look for 3 babies who had vanished like smoke. Rumors swirled fast. Some locals whispered of animal attacks, though none could explain the complete lack of blood or noise. Others speculated that a stranger had been watching the Fosters, planning, waiting for the perfect moment. But those who knew the family best had a more disturbing thought. This wasn't random. Whoever took the triplets had studied the family, understood their habits, and moved with surgical precision. As the days passed, the media descended. News anchors stood on frozen lawns broadcasting words like heartbreaking, unprecedented, and unthinkable. And behind every camera, the same question burned in everyone's eyes. How can 3 babies disappear without leaving a single trace? Weeks turned into months. The nursery remained untouched, a shrine to a moment that never should have happened. Loretta spent most of her days sitting in the wooden rocking chair by the window, staring at the empty cribs, whispering names that had once filled the house with laughter. David, once a calm and practical man, began to unravel. He kept a notebook, writing down license plates of any unfamiliar car that passed their rural road. He installed locks on every door, then more locks inside those locks. At one point, he dug a shallow trench around the property in case someone returned. Convinced the children would be brought back the same way they left, the community held vigils, set up reward funds, and passed out flyers at truck stops, malls, and fairs. Despite national coverage, there were no sightings, no letters, no bodies. Not even a shred of clothing was ever found. As years dragged on, theories turned wild. Some claimed the triplets had been sold through a black market adoption ring. Others believed a disgraced pediatric nurse who had once treated the children had kidnapped them for revenge. There was even speculation about a traveling religious cult rumored to have passed through Indiana in early 1981. One that believed in purifying multiples for salvation. Every theory brought hope. Every dead end brought collapse. David and Loretta became different people, unrecognizable to friends and family. Grief settled into their bones like winter frost. By 1993, the case had grown so cold it was placed in archival status. Detectives retired, and evidence boxes gathered dust. The world moved on as it always does. But in that house on Sparrow Creek Road, time stopped in 1981. It was the kind of box you don't expect to change your life. No label, no weight, no hint of significance. Just a dusty cardboard cube tucked between a broken lamp and an old suitcase in the back of the Foster attic. It had been nearly 30 years since the triplets disappeared. Loretta had passed away the previous winter, her final days spent in near silence, eyes always drifting to the nursery door that had remained closed since that horrible morning. David, now in his 70s, had grown quiet too. He spoke to almost no one. His world was down to groceries, old photo albums, and a bitter kind of patience that only a grieving father could understand. On a rainy Thursday in late spring of 2011, he decided to clear the attic. Loretta's belongings, the nursery keepsakes, and all the untouched corners of a life that had stopped too soon. That's when he found the box. He almost didn't open it, thought maybe it was just old Christmas decorations. But something made him pause. The tape was sealed differently, tight, smooth. He opened the flap, and there, stacked neatly, like someone had arranged them with care, were photographs. Not baby photos, not even ones he remembered taking. They showed 3 children around 10 or 11 years old, playing in what looked like a fenced backyard. A swing set, a wooden sandbox. One photo showed the kids seated on a picnic blanket eating peanut butter sandwiches. And their faces, David's breath caught in his throat. He dropped the picture. They looked just like Michael, Mason, and Megan, only older. Older than they had ever lived to be. Or so he had thought. David didn't sleep that night. He spread the photographs across the kitchen table like puzzle pieces, examining every edge, every corner, every expression. He knew those eyes, the tilt of Mason's head when he smiled, the dimple on Megan's left cheek, Michael's habit of resting one hand on his knee when seated, something he'd done even as a baby. The resemblance wasn't just close, it was precise. But the strangest part? None of the photographs were dated. There were no notes on the back, no stamps from developers. Nothing to show where they were taken or by whom. And yet, in the background of one picture, David spotted something. A street number nailed to a fence. 413. It was barely legible, but enough to give him hope. The next morning, he drove the photos to the local sheriff's department. The case had long been closed, reassigned twice, and buried under thousands of archived files. But when he placed the photos in front of Detective Karen Holloway, a chill swept the room. Holloway wasn't born when the triplets vanished, but she'd grown up hearing the story. Her mother still kept a yellowed newspaper clipping in a scrapbook. The case had haunted the town. Forensics teams were brought in immediately. Scans, facial recognition software, and biometric comparison were run. The results were shocking. Over 90% facial similarity to the baby photos from the original file. The children in the new images weren't just similar. They were genetically, structurally, almost certainly the same. But how could that be? They would have been 10 or 11 in the photographs. The images must have been taken around 1991, a full decade after they vanished. Yet no one had seen them. No one had spoken of them. And the photographs, according to analysis, were chemically consistent with that exact era. Someone had taken them, and then hidden them in the attic of the family they were stolen from. With the photos now in evidence, the case was formally reopened, this time under national jurisdiction. The media quickly caught wind of the story, and headlines once again screamed across TV screens. New evidence surfaces in 30-year-old triplet disappearance. Old detectives were pulled out of retirement for consultation. The attic was re-examined with ground-penetrating radar and thermal scanners, as if someone might have hidden something else between the floorboards of grief. But the attic yielded nothing more. Just one box. Just one clue. When questioned, David swore he had never seen the photographs before, and had no idea how they ended up in his house. Loretta's journals were combed for clues, but there were no references to visitors, packages, or anything unusual. One theory emerged that chilled the entire investigative team. What if the person who took the children had returned? Not to harm, but to haunt. Had they come back to taunt a grieving father? Or worse, was one of the Fosters involved? investigators tracked down the source of the photos' paper stock and ink. They were traced to a small chain photography store that operated across the Midwest in the early 90s, but the company had shut down in 1996. No records remained. The number 413 from the fence in the background was run through every local and federal database of street addresses, schools, churches, and parks. Hundreds of leads, but none matched the architecture in the image. Even facial recognition software run through missing children databases in all 50 states turned up no additional sightings. The kids in those photos seemed to exist only in that captured moment, and nowhere else. David, now more frail and withdrawn, held onto a single photo, the one where Megan, or the girl who looked like her, was blowing bubbles toward the camera, her eyes locked with the lens. "She's trying to say something," he told Holloway during one of their final interviews. "Look at her eyes. She knows I'm looking, like she wants me to find her." But despite every effort, the trail dried up. No witnesses, no prints, no answers, just three faces staring out of time, and a box that no one could explain. In the summer of 2019, nearly 40 years after the triplets vanished, a new thread appeared, frayed and uncertain, but undeniable. A woman named Ruth Maddox, who owned a small antique and consignment shop in rural Montana, contacted the sheriff's department in Indiana after reading an online article about the reopened case. She wasn't looking for attention. Her voice on the recorded call was calm but cautious. She explained that in late May of that year, a man had stopped by her shop, tall, quiet, polite, in his late 30s or early 40s. He wore a flannel shirt, well-worn boots, and spoke with a strange familiarity when he noticed an old newspaper clipping framed behind the counter. The clipping, dated 1981, had been preserved in plastic and hung as a curiosity. "Triplets vanish without a trace," the headline read. The man stared at the photo of the babies for a long time. According to Ruth, his hands began to tremble slightly. Then he asked her softly, "Do you know what happened to them?" She said no, just that it was an old case from Indiana. He nodded slowly and said, "I think I was supposed to forget something, but I never could." Before she could ask what he meant, he thanked her and walked out. When Ruth went to retrieve her cell phone to take a picture of his license plate, she realized her security camera had been turned off. Someone had snipped the power cord from behind the building, cleanly, without triggering an alarm. It was as if someone had known exactly what they were doing. Investigators flew to Montana the next day. They interviewed Ruth, swept the area for security footage from nearby gas stations and ATMs, and released a composite sketch. But nothing came of it. No fingerprints, no credit card trails. The man was gone, and with him maybe the last living echo of the truth. Detective Holloway later called the Montana sighting the cruelest gift. It gave hope but no path forward. The man had known something. She was certain of it. But just like the photographs, he appeared, left a trace of meaning, and then vanished, swallowed by time. Today, the foster house still stands, though its windows are boarded and the nursery is sealed behind a door no one dares open. The swing set rusts in the yard. Wildflowers have reclaimed the garden that Loretta once tended every Sunday. The story of the vanished triplets has become more than a case. It's a legend, a warning, and a wound etched into the soul of a town that never found peace. Detective Holloway, now nearing retirement, still keeps a copy of the photograph on her desk. The three children sitting under a tree, a picnic blanket beneath them, all looking away except for one. The girl who stared directly into the lens. "Every time I look into her eyes," she once said, "I feel like she's still waiting." David Foster passed away in 2021. He died in his sleep, alone in the house that had become his prison of memory. At his funeral, Holloway placed that same photograph in his jacket pocket. "They were always with him," she whispered, "even if they never came back." There was no gravestone for the triplets, only a marble plaque that reads, "Michael, Mason, Megan. Always seen, never found." Over the years, many have tried to unravel what happened. Was it a carefully planned abduction? A decades-long conspiracy? Or something beyond understanding? Something darker, more surreal? The attic box remains sealed in evidence, untouched since it was collected. Forensic experts say the chemical composition of the photos matches the early 1990s. But the mystery remains. Who took them? And why hide them where they'd eventually be found? Some believe the box was left as a breadcrumb, a twisted gift from someone who wanted the world to know they were still out there. Others believe the children died that night, and the photographs are a cruel fabrication, meant only to torment. But there's a third possibility, that someone, somewhere, raised them in secrecy. That one or more of them might still be alive, living under new names, haunted by fragments of a forgotten past. And maybe one day another photo will surface, another clue, another chance. Until then, the story echoes, quiet, unsettling, unforgettable. Because the moment you forget they existed is the moment they truly vanish. If you found this story haunting, share it. Someone out there may remember something. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon, so you never miss another true mystery from the vanished echo stories. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your memory sharper, because some echoes never fade. Thanks for watching.